I never received it. That's all I said. One sentence, 4 words, spoken just loud enough to cut through the clinking champagne flutes and the overly loud music blasting from the rooftop speakers of our downtown Denver office building. Our CEO, Preston Garrett, a man who uses too much hair gel and too few ethics, had just raised his glass to me. My name is Caleb Brooks, I'm 48 years old, and I've been building the backbone of data flow systems for 18 years. Preston was toasting me in front of the entire company at our annual spring celebration. To Caleb, he beamed, looking out at the crowd like a game show host. He hit every milestone this quarter and earned himself that fat $32,000 bonus. Cheers! Applause followed. Laughter. I even heard someone from sales yell, "Buy us all drinks, Caleb!" I didn't laugh. I didn't raise my glass. I just looked up at Preston from across the terrace, met his gaze, and said those 4 words. I never received it, and that's when the party died. It didn't collapse exactly. It bled out slowly in silence. The CFO, Lance Murphy, who always smells like old money and antacids, twitched hard enough to almost spill his drink. The HR director, Brooke Martinez, started coughing into her napkin like she'd suddenly forgotten how to swallow shrimp cocktail. Even the intern manning the dessert table stopped slicing cheesecake and stared. Preston, to his credit, didn't flinch. He just chuckled that fake laugh he uses when investors ask about overdue reports. Ah, always modest, Caleb. Well, it's in the system. Payroll must have processed it already. I blinked once. I checked this morning. Nothing deposited. Brooke made a noise halfway between a laugh and a sneeze. I'll have finance look into it first thing Monday, Preston said, his voice a little too bright. Now let's enjoy tonight. You deserve to celebrate. I'm sure I do, I said. Just want to know what I'm celebrating. And with that, I set my glass down still full and walked off the rooftop. Left Preston standing there like a balloon with the air leaking out. He kept smiling, but you could see the edges starting to crack. Listen, I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't scream into my steering wheel or fire off an angry email. I just drove home to my apartment in Capitol Hill, made myself a sandwich, and opened my laptop. Then I started pulling the files. Because here's the thing, I wasn't confused. I wasn't even shocked. I was prepared. 3 months ago, I asked for a copy of my original employment contract for tax purposes, I said. Legal sent it over without a second thought. I saved it in a folder titled "In Case They Get Stupid." That folder had 27 other documents in it. Vendor invoices I'd flagged, internal memos I wasn't supposed to see, a PDF from 2 years ago titled "Bonus Allocations, Executive Discretion," a spreadsheet showing budget reallocations that just happened to divert $32,000 from my department to miscellaneous development, approved by Preston himself, and a personal favorite, a screenshot of a Slack message where Lance asked if it was okay to ghost pay Caleb's Q1 bonus to cover Scottsdale travel. Ghost pay. Scottsdale. I could have laughed if I weren't so utterly done. See, I didn't get where I am by being loud. I'm not the one who bangs on tables or leads motivational chants. I'm the one who fixes things quietly, efficiently, without drama. When our entire customer database crashed 3 years ago, I rebuilt it over a weekend while management played golf. When our security got breached last year, I patched the holes before the hackers even knew they'd been locked out. And when people like Preston forget that quiet doesn't mean powerless, well, that's when things start to break. I sent one email before I went to bed. Just one. No attachments, no explanations, just the subject line. Clause 7.4. Notice of invocation. And to be clear, I wrote that clause myself 3 years ago. Slipped it into my contract after watching too many young hotshots get handshakes and handouts for projects I delivered. HR never read it. Legal skimmed. Preston signed it during a budget crisis while scarfing pad thai on a Zoom call. Clause 7.4. Failure to disperse performance bonus within 10 business days of confirmed milestone completion entitles the employee to initiate proprietary protection protocols without further notice. They'd forgotten about it. I hadn't. And now I just flipped the first domino. Monday morning smelled like panic and burnt coffee. Not that anyone would admit it. On the surface, the data flow systems office was its usual beige purgatory. People walked briskly between the glass-walled conference rooms. Phones rang with exaggerated urgency. And somewhere down the hall, someone kept pretending to laugh at something on Slack. But beneath the fluorescent hum, something had shifted. I could feel it the moment I badged into the building on 17th Street. By 9:12 a.m., Brooke from HR had already stopped by my desk twice under the guise of just checking in. Her blouse still had glitter on it from the rooftop party. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Hey, Caleb," she said, too cheerful. "So weird about the bonus thing. Probably just payroll being slow, right? You know how the new system can be." I didn't even bother looking up from my monitor. "Sure," I said. "Probably." At 10:03 a.m., I got the email I'd been waiting for. Subject line, contract review. Follow-up, urgent from Diana Wells, lead counsel. She asked me to join a legal review meeting at 10:30 sharp, small conference room, just her and me. No need to bring anything, the email said, so I brought everything. The conference room smelled like lemon cleaner and fear. Diana was already seated when I arrived at 10:30 sharp, fingers pressed together like she was trying to physically hold her thoughts in place. She didn't offer me coffee. She didn't smile. She gestured to the chair across from her like I was there to discuss a will. She held a printed copy of my contract in her lap, pages slightly creased, one pink post-it marking page 7. I sat, set my leather folder on the table, and waited. Diana cleared her throat. "Caleb, have you ever exercised Clause 7.4 before?" "No," I said, "but the clause is valid. Signed, countersigned, time-stamped. You'll find the backup in the contract repository. Document hash Caleb B746B. She blinked. I continued. "It was added as a condition of continued employment during the 2020 Q3 restructuring. I wrote it myself, ran it past outside counsel, and sent it to legal for incorporation. Preston approved it over lunch on October 12th. Said it sounded cool and assertive." Diana looked down again, flipping to the marked page. She read the clause aloud slowly, like each word was a warning she'd ignored. Clause 7.4. Failure to disperse performance bonus within 10 business days of confirmed milestone completion entitles the employee to initiate proprietary protection protocols without further notice. Her voice thinned as she got to the end. She looked up at me, pale. "You're saying you invoked this yesterday?" "I am. And those protocols?" She hesitated. "They're not just symbolic, are they?" "They're layered," I said calmly. Encryption keys rotated, access permissions revoked, authentication tokens expired. Think of it as a digital dead man switch. Every system I built over 18 years now requires my personal authorization to function. Her pen slipped slightly from her fingers. "And the documentation?" I nodded toward my folder. "Protected under individual authorship until the bonus is legally fulfilled. Page 10 of the clause addendum. You'll find it notarized." She stared at me for a long moment, no longer trying to hide the tremble in her jaw. Preston said he mentioned the bonus at the party to be gracious. He assumed it had been paid. It hadn't. "Have you spoken to finance?" "I spoke to my bank. I spoke to payroll. I reviewed every deposit since January 1st. I even pulled the ACH batch logs for the entire Q1 period. My bonus isn't there." She stood and walked over to the conference phone, dialed an internal line. "Get Preston in here now." We sat in silence for 3 minutes. I could hear the clock tick, the HVAC hum through the Denver office building, Diana's breathing pick up speed like a runner about to collapse at the finish line. Preston burst in like he was crashing a game show. "What's the emergency?" he said, out of breath and still carrying a protein shake. Diana stood and handed him the contract. "No pleasantries, no preamble. You signed this. You activated this." He flipped pages with that same performative gusto he uses at shareholder meetings. Then he stopped. Read the clause. Blinked. "Wait, this is real?" "Very," I said. "I thought it was like a flex." "A negotiation line. It's a clause," I said, "and it's been triggered." Preston looked up, jaw clenched. "So what? You're locking down our systems over a bonus?" Diana cut him off before I could. "No, he's legally authorized to initiate protective actions on proprietary framework he authored. That includes quite a lot, Preston." "Including operations protocols?" His face drained. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "he could lock us out of the systems he built?" "No," I replied. "You've already lost access. The protocols kicked in at midnight Sunday. 10 business days expired Friday at 5 p.m. The grace period ended at midnight. Preston looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Diana just stared down at the table like it might offer her a way out. "I'll fix it," Preston muttered. "I'll call payroll right now. We'll push it through." That would constitute retroactive coercion, I said evenly. Clause 7.4 defines any bonus payment post-invocation as attempted bribery to reverse a protective protocol. That language is very specific, and it makes any such payment legally inadmissible. He turned to Diana. This can't hold up in court. She didn't answer because she knew it would. Preston spent the rest of that meeting doing what overconfident executives do best, bluffing with the desperation of someone realizing the chips weren't in his stack. First came denial dressed up as concern. Then came delay wrapped in false charm and administrative jargon. I've seen it before. Hell, I'd lived it for the better part of 18 years at Dataflow Systems. But this time, I wasn't the quiet fixer behind the curtain. I was the one holding the rope, and Preston had just stepped into the noose. It's gotta be a payroll glitch, he said, pacing now as if motion might summon credibility. I'll get Lance on it. He's probably already flagged it. Would you like me to forward the screenshots? I asked. Calm, no bite. Just offering facts like a barista offering extra foam. Preston blinked. Screenshots? I opened my folder and slid a single printed sheet across the table. Transaction history from my bank. Highlighted and annotated. Underneath it, stapled neatly, was an internal log from our own accounting software. Payment batch IDs, disbursement dates, amounts, and approval chains. Checked and verified, I said. All bonuses for Q1 performance were issued between March 15th and March 22nd per standard schedule. Mine wasn't included in any batch. Diana leaned in to examine the paperwork. Her mouth formed a tight line. Preston didn't look. He just turned to the door like maybe there was an escape route hiding behind the coat rack. I mean, this doesn't make sense, he muttered. You're telling me the system just skipped you? No, I said. I'm telling you someone overrode the system. Silence. Diana finally spoke. We need to verify these against finance records. Caleb, we appreciate your cooperation. In the meantime, I nodded once. Of course. To keep everything above board, I've submitted a written invocation of Clause 7.4 to HR, time-stamped, delivered via internal and external channels. Copy is attached to that same folder. Preston's eyes widened just slightly at that. He knew what that meant. A verbal warning is one thing. A formal invocation? That's a legal warhead in a tailored suit. I think we're escalating too quickly here, Brooke from HR said later that afternoon when she called me into her office on the 3rd floor. She had the soft, frantic tone of someone trying to tape over a pipe leak with Scotch tape. There's probably just a mistake somewhere. Maybe the approval got stuck in the system. You know how Lance's team is with the new payroll software? I gave her a thin smile. Sure. But for a bonus that size, and considering how it was announced publicly, I figured I'd be proactive. Well, she said, fidgeting with a branded Dataflow Systems stress ball, we'll look into it. Just give us some time. Okay, I've documented everything, I said, and I'd rather not delay corrective action. I assume the company feels the same. She didn't answer, just nodded and gestured vaguely at her screen like she had some form to fill out, as if pretending to work on it would buy time. But here's the part they didn't understand. My calm wasn't compliance, it was calculation. Because while legal stalled, HR bluffed, and Preston paced around like a ferret in a windstorm, I was already 10 steps ahead. My logs were more than financial. I'd built a full internal tracker for every milestone, bonus approval, and resource allocation since I joined Dataflow Systems back in 2006. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I did. Trust them to forget. Trust them to cover for each other. Trust them to reroute funds when they thought no one was watching. Buried in those logs, under a seemingly boring column labeled Authorization Trail, was something I knew they hadn't counted on. A pattern. 3 identical authorizations. 3 redirected payments. Same coded memo tag. BINF. Project realignment. One of them was mine. The other 2? Executives who hadn't even met their Q1 deliverables. Ghost bonuses. I didn't mention it yet. Timing was everything. Let the rot rise to the surface on its own like it always does. That afternoon, I went back to my desk and pulled up the encrypted vault where I kept my audit files on a secure partition. I flagged 3 of them, added a red marker to the one labeled Q1 Variance, $10K plus. Then I reopened my private project logs and made a single entry. Delay tactic confirmed, legal not unified, HR stalling, audit escalation 48-hour countdown. Then I did something Preston would never have expected. I made myself a cup of tea, logged out of my email, and went home exactly at 5:01 p.m. Because I didn't need to chase anyone. I'd already set the fuse. All they had to do was keep lying long enough for it to burn down everything around them. By Tuesday morning, the data flow systems office smelled like secrets. Not just the usual stench of overbrewed coffee and reheated salmon from accounting's communal fridge, but something sour, sharper, like nerves left out in the sun too long. No one knew what was happening exactly, but everyone knew something was. Preston stopped strutting. Diana stopped smiling. Lance from finance suddenly found religion and started avoiding elevators with other humans in them. Even Brooke from HR, who usually chirped out "Happy Tuesday" like it was a holy greeting, was glued to her inbox, one AirPod in, nodding furiously at whatever crisis call she was pretending to be in control of. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. While they were scrambling to reconcile discrepancies, I was already deep into what I now considered Phase 2, the quiet audit. For the past 3 years, I'd kept a second system. Not company-sanctioned, not cloud-backed, an encrypted, air-gapped external drive I jokingly referred to as my insurance policy. Not because I was paranoid, but because I was experienced. I'd watched too many colleagues get blamed for budget oversights that weren't theirs. Watched high-level execs gaslight staff into silence over clerical errors that somehow always favored people with parking spots near the executive entrance. My system didn't just track bonuses. It tracked movements. Financial, procedural, personnel-based. Every time a vendor payment was processed, I copied the metadata. Every time a bonus was authorized, I screen captured the approval chain. Every hire, every departure, every email with a curious BCC, I logged it. The file structures were dry, sure, labeled by quarter and initiative. But once you opened them, it was like staring into the plumbing of a very corrupt building. And now, combing through Q1 logs in my Capitol Hill apartment Tuesday evening, I saw exactly what I feared. 3 C-level bonuses, all authorized on the same date, March 8th, all tagged under reallocated discretionary funds, all sourced from departments that had reported unclaimed performance incentives. The numbers matched the missing disbursements, mine included. One of them, I remembered, had been publicly denied due to underperformance. Lance had announced it himself in the March all-hands meeting. Another exec hadn't even submitted his final milestone report yet. There was his $35,000 payout. Neatly approved, signed off by Preston. Memo line, strategic retention. Strategic theft was more like it. And one more thing, a name I didn't recognize. A payout tagged retention bonus to a consultant named Hunter Phillips. No employee ID, no tax documentation, no performance log. Just a wire transfer for $38,000 to an out-of-state account and a note buried in the finance system under contractor services. Confidential. I checked our contractor directory. No Phillips. I checked payroll. Nothing. Then I checked our new hire and separation logs. That's when my stomach clenched. Lance had a template for onboarding ghost employees, one used when building dummy access credentials for product testing. Normally, these were temporary, sandboxed, and monitored, but someone had copy-pasted that template and used it to create an entire personnel record, enough to justify contractor disbursement. The signature on the authorization, Lance Murphy, CFO. Now, I'm not a whistleblower by nature. I don't enjoy takedowns, but I do believe in balance. Watching these men loot our Denver-based company like a piñata at a frat reunion while gaslighting me over a $32,000 bonus, that was my line. I didn't need to go to the press. I didn't need a scandal on LinkedIn. I just needed to pull one very specific thread. At 3:44 p.m. Wednesday, I used my personal laptop at a coffee shop on Colfax Avenue, behind a VPN, with a freshly created encrypted Proton Mail account. I crafted a short, emotionless message to the board's internal audit committee. Subject, possible unauthorized executive disbursements. Body, 3 Q1 bonuses approved outside of performance parameters, 1 linked to a ghost employee profile, all traceable via internal audit trail. Keywords, Phillips, reallocated discretionary, project realignment. No name, no threat, no demand. Just enough breadcrumbs to force someone's hand. By the time I got back to the data flow systems office, I could feel it like weather rolling in behind drywall. The cloud hadn't burst yet, but the pressure was changing. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Emails slowed. Slack channels went eerily quiet. Preston passed me in the hallway and gave me a smile so forced it looked like it had been stapled to his face. "Everything all right, Caleb?" "Everything's in motion," I said. That night, I backed up my audit logs again. Triple copies. Stored one in a safety deposit box under my sister's name at a Wells Fargo branch in Boulder. Mailed another to my attorney with a time-stamped letter marked, "Do not open unless instructed." Kept the third in my desk drawer, unmarked, unlabeled, innocent-looking, as a user manual. Because things were about to get loud. And when they did, I wanted to be the only one holding earplugs. By Thursday morning, Diana was a ghost in her own office. Not literally. She was still there, still wearing her power blazers and her unreadable lawyer face. But the fire behind her eyes had flickered into something cold and careful. I saw it when she passed me in the hallway, the way she hesitated before speaking, the way her fingers twitched near her phone like it might bite her. She wasn't avoiding me. She was circling the perimeter of a situation she finally realized she didn't control. So I gave her a door. "Hey, Diana," I said, leaning into her office around 11:15 a.m. "Got 5 minutes today? Just you and me?" She blinked up from her laptop. "Of course." No fake smiles this time. No corporate small talk. She cleared the table instinctively like she knew something important was coming. I stepped in, shut the door behind me, and placed a single folder on the polished wood between us. Black, sealed with a sticker that read, "Privileged, internal counsel only." "It stays between us until Monday," I said, "but I think you'll want to read it before then." She stared at the folder like it might hiss. "What's inside?" "A timeline," I said, cross-referenced. Documentation, screenshots, process logs, bonus disbursement approvals, all of it compared line by line against actual payments. Highlighted inconsistencies, authorizations with no backup, memos that don't match deposits. She opened the folder. The first page was a highlighted timeline. Q1 2024 to present. At each milestone, I'd marked when I submitted deliverables, when bonuses were contractually due, when executive payouts occurred, and when discrepancies first appeared. Then came the screenshots. Dated, time-stamped internal system logs showing approval signatures by Preston and Lance. Next to them, bank transfer receipts showing amounts moved into unrelated accounts. Diana's eyes moved quickly. Every now and then, her fingers would hesitate at the edge of a page, like she wasn't sure she wanted to see what came next. Then she hit the red tab. She paused, looked up at me. "SEC implications if filed," I said. "There are at least 2 instances of unreported executive compensation rerouted through non-payroll disbursements. That's a compliance problem, especially if those funds came from designated employee bonus pools." I pointed to a highlighted section. "This ledger shows they did." She leaned back in her chair, hands folded but not tightly. Her poker face was cracking just a little. "What are you asking me, Caleb?" "I'm giving you the chance to decide what kind of lawyer you want to be when this goes public," I said. "One who tried to clean up the mess before the guests noticed, or one who helped them make it worse." She looked back at the folder. The weight of it sat between us like a loaded weapon. It wasn't thick, only about 20 pages, but it was dense with consequences. "What happens if I give this to the board?" she asked. "You protect the company," I said. "You lose Preston, maybe Lance, but you don't lose everything. And if I don't? I've already mailed a copy to Wesley Barnes on the Oversight Committee. He doesn't know what he's holding yet. I told him to wait for a signal. You can choose to make that signal a controlled call or a fire alarm." She exhaled through her nose, closed the folder, kept it beside her instead of handing it back. Friday morning arrived like a funeral no one wanted to attend. Preston's kingdom smelled of over-polished desperation and people pretending they weren't waiting for the other shoe to drop. By 8:30 a.m., I received a calendar invite that made me smile. Emergency board review, executive session, conference room A, 10 o'clock a.m. Attendees, board members, legal counsel, external auditor Noah Lynn, and me. Preston wasn't on the list. The meeting lasted 47 minutes. I presented my terms calmly, professionally, like the seasoned engineer I am. Full restitution, $32,000 bonus, plus $48,000 in penalties per clause 7.4, tripled for willful breach. Licensing fees for 18 years of proprietary work. $250,000, payable before system unlock. Termination of Preston Garrett and Lance Murphy with cause. External HR audit of all. Bonus payments for the past 3 years. Wesley Barnes, my old mentor, asked the final question. Are you planning to stay with Dataflow Systems? I met his eyes. No. But I'll ensure a clean transition of all systems and documentation. Once my terms are met. They voted unanimously. Preston was terminated that afternoon. Lance resigned before they could fire him. Brooke from HR quietly submitted her 2 weeks' notice. By 5 p.m. Friday, I had a wire transfer confirmation for $330,000 in my personal account. By 6 p.m., I'd unlocked every system I'd built and provided full documentation for my replacement. Monday morning, I cleaned out my desk in the Denver office where I'd spent 18 years building something that mattered. As I walked to the elevator with my cardboard box, several colleagues nodded respectfully. They knew. Word travels fast in tech circles. Preston tried to corner me one last time in the parking garage, but security escorted him off the property before he got close. I drove home to my Capitol Hill apartment, opened a beer, and started browsing remote job postings. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying them. Sometimes it's showing them exactly how much they needed you, and then walking away on your own terms. The IPO got delayed indefinitely. I heard they're still trying to rebuild what I built. Good luck with that.